The moon is rising soon on Innistrad Remastered, and this isn't a set that's going into standard, but it's a reprint set, meaning it's mostly about the opening experience and finding cool cards.
That's right, and they are finally cashing in on Edgar Markov. We've been waiting for it forever, and it is finally the great nuking of Edgar Markov's price.
Big thanks to our patrons for a fantastic year, y'all. 2024 has been awesome, and we hope that 2025 is even better. Thank you for your continued support. Jake and Joel Are Magic is brought to you by Dragon Shield, the best sleeves that you can get in the entire multiverse. Card Conduit, the best place to sell the cards that you're not using worth 50 cents or more quickly and easily. And TCG Player, the best place to buy your cards online.
A big shout out to Moxfield as well, which is a great spot to organize your decks and where you can find all of our Jake and Joel Are Magic deck lists and also MTG stocks and drip shop.
Like many remastered sets before it, Innistrad is bringing us a lot of different treatments. And Jake, I think we would be remiss not to start with everyone's vampire daddy. Like you said, they are cashing in the equity. They're reprinting the Markov patriarch here. And we are parfaiting the absolute crap out of this.
You know, I want to say something about this because I think this is going to be a theme that we see with highly rare, highly sought after cards. I think Wizards of the Coast is kind of running out of big hits like this to pull out of their hat when they need them.
Especially if they keep getting banned.
I mean, I think with stuff like this, it's like, for example, Edgar came out of the 2017 deck list. I remember you bought this deck. I bought Arcane Wizardry. I remember playing these with you before you left LA. They're very strong decks. Eminence is extremely strong. Eminence first came out. We saw it first with Allura before they called it Eminence, but it was a big issue, and it's a mechanic that's honestly extremely busted, in my opinion.
This is really what you're saying is this is really the only context that this could get reprinted in, because they have called Eminence a design mistake. They have admitted that it was not something that they're ever going to do, shouldn't have done, and are ever going to do again. So a remastered set where this is now the first headliner makes sense for this reprint.
Right. And so these headliner cards like this, I don't even have a list of them to say. I can't really think of anyone's other than this right now. I'm sure there is a list, but
no, there's this is the very first headliner card of all that entire initiative, and so this is our first time looking at it at all.
Sure. No, I mean more from the standpoint of like cards that are extremely scarce and extremely expensive.
I see.
To where Wizards of the Coast is like, they don't have a long laundry list of cards like that.
What could they use as the headliner if it's not a brand new thing?
Yes, dude. So for me, I think we're gonna see Wizards of the Coast. They're not just gonna throw reprints like this into anything willy-nilly. So it's gonna be something. These cards are going to be used to move sets moving forward.
When you think about it, LCI kind of, the crypt was sort of the special 100%. Guest without it being 100%. Named that. That could have been a soft test of not special guest, but headliner. That could have been a soft test of headliner before we even got it officially,
100%, dude. So we're finally seeing the Edgar Markov reprint. This is a long time coming. Anybody who's a fan of the channel, big thank you to all of our longtime viewers. This is something that we've been saying for a long time, that Edgar would finally show up, and we live in the booster fun era where it's variance, and I'm not surprised to see it get the, as you like to say, the full parfait. The full parfait.
We got our base, we got our retro, we've got a showcase with the Fang treatment here that they're bringing back from that set that nobody really bought. And the big story here,
one of those Innistrad sets,
one of those that had to do with vampires and werewolves. This one, this is the big talk of the town here, is Edgar Markov. And people are talking about this one in every direction, bro. Like, do you like the art? Are you a fan of serialized? Do you like that the top of the parfait is this thing? The things that we know. Number one, this art, this version is only available serialized. We are not going to see... Oh my God, so smart. If you're going to do this, make this exclusive, because this is a top-end piece. This whole headliner initiative that they've got seems like it's to give the people who like to chase after the really rare stuff and have some really sick collectible piece.
Yes.
This guy, that guy, that's giving us something in a set. And so, big fan of it overall. Huge fan of it not appearing as a non-serialized version either. You know, I think that some of the fracture foils, Japanese showcase, English, Japanese mix up, I think some of that, you know, traditional foil, some fractured foil, some non-foil, I think that got a little muddy for me as to like, okay, which is, you open it up and you're like, oh my God, this is sick. And then somebody's like, well, actually, that's not the fractured Japanese version. And it's like, well, thank you for making me feel like crap for hitting a 5% chance card. And so with this, it's very clear. You open this, you see Edgar Markov with a headband. You're like, is he a magician? Baby. Because I just pulled some magic cards. Got him.
You just pulled some magic cards. I think there's something to be said about the art here. It doesn't really matter what the art is because it's so rare.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen some people be like, well, it's pretty ugly. Yeah, it's
rarity, dude.
Your wallet isn't going to think it's ugly. Let's just say that.
Right, exactly.
So, yeah.
Speaking of wallet, let's talk about particular price comps on this card. Some people have asked us, how expensive do you think this card is going to be? And that's hard to say because it is the only one. There's only 500 and there's no other cards around it to be like, all right, this is how we're going to set the market on this. That's the most desirable, the least desirable, and then the ones in between can kind of fall in where they fall. With Edgar, you got this. You only got 500 versions. Looking at old comps, Jake, we saw Modern Horizons 3 and Assassin's Creed bring us serialized versions. You see the out of 250 trio be over $1,000 each, right around that $2,000 mark each, depending on, you know, most powerful, least powerful, whatever perception of the community, as it were. Then you've got the out of 500s that come as a 4 set from your Assassin's Creed set, all around that like 300 to 700, 300 to 900. Leo's out of stock here, but I think Leo has been like kind of proven as the strongest option of these.
Good.
Yeah,
it's actually good. Yeah,
right. And so with this set, you know, these were just the last ones that we saw. I think, Jake, looking at the other end of things, you got holy blowout here with Ravnica Remastered, bringing us thousands of serial cards.
Yeah, there were a lot of serialized cards. There were a couple sets, you know, where Wizards of the Coast was like, okay, you know, Brothers War, March of the Machine, those come to mind, where you could pull a serialized card, but a ton of cards were given the serialized treatment. So I've seen serialized cards, you know, under $100. If it's like some jank, you know, uncommon that got serialized out of March of the Machine, you're going to find stuff that's pretty cheap. But I think Wizards is kind of seeing, like, look at that Ghost Away. You know, there's serialized cards for 69, 73, 65. I mean, like, look at all of this. You know?
Imagine pulling a Mind Leech Mass serialized card and you're like, yay.
Yeah, it's like, you know, who cares, right? You know, playability comes to mind. So I think Wizards kind of like, they don't want people to think of their serialized cards and go, oh yeah, you know, you get lucky to pull a serialized and it's, you know, less than $100. I mean, look at the Protean Hulk. You remember when you pulled that and it was like super hype?
Yep.
Well, it's like $100, right? And you pulled something that was extremely rare. So what we see now is Wizards kind of moving to this this mindset of, okay, our serialized cards need to be rare. It can't be like Magic the baseballing where everything gets serialized and no one gives a shit.
One of ones across the entire board, just so many. Yeah. Starts taking the gas out of the cool ones or out of just doing it in general. You mentioned March of the Machine, 500, 5 set out of 500. These are around that 1,000 to 2,000. These vary pretty wildly. Not as available as you can see. We've only got a few listings. The Elish is completely out of stock. You mentioned Multiversal Legends. This is one of the ones where they really blew it out. Looks like you've got decent, you know, a couple of different tiers. You've got that like near 1,000, then you've got that like around 500, then around that 300, and then you got everything that's like 150 and less.
Yeah, bro, Ragavan really crept up as well. That was one that I don't remember even being near 1,000. I remember that being around like and I might be wrong about this, but I remember it being around like, $500 or $600. And yeah, it's cool to see that. I'm sure people are also going to be like, hey, Jake and Jill, talk about the stuff from Lord of the Rings, right? The special edition. I think that one's kind of hard to gauge because you have the Universes Beyond IP crossover.
Right.
But, obviously those boxes have gone to the moon because of stuff like the One Ring and people wanting to be able to collect all those poster foils. So that product is kind of hard to talk about in this discussion because we're talking about all stuff that is specifically Magic IP and not that Universes Beyond kind of crossover thing. But I do think that them having fewer cards, I think, that Karlov Manor test was a good step in the right direction. Shout out to Dom moving his Aurelia for, I think, $1,500. And now, you can see it for around 1,000. So a little bit of a dip in the price of those. Wizards is right to reduce. I think that's going to really benefit them in the long term.
I agree. We've seen it this year, 7 options here, all out of 250. The other ones that we've looked at, 3 options out of 250, 4 options out of 500. I like them living in this realm. A lot of it comes down to playability, as you can see with some of these cards. The desirability of the card on a very base level has a lot to do with where these fall out. And so I think you've seen some of the Karlov Manor cards go down in price simply because they were unique new legends that may have not found a home yet, may just be getting lost in the ever-increasing flood of legends that are options to be your commander. And so with Edgar Markov, we know playability off the charts. This is the vampire commander. Like there's
the vampire.
Right.
Yeah.
It is and so as it were, I would assume that this is going to be around that $2,000 mark. If I had to guess, after everything is like kind of settled out, I have a feeling that like with everything, Jake, this will be way overhyped out of the gate, and you'll be seeing some of these. Because I think that you also have to kind of talk about the meta of what number you get within that as well. If you're pulling 1 or 500 or 420 or 69 or any of the meme numbers, any of the good 111, 222, 333, any of that kind of stuff, you are in a kind of playing in a different realm there. But
69, 420.
Yeah, right. I mean, $2,000 around that, I think, is a decent comp for where this may fall out, but we'll see.
Well, let's look at really quickly, just entertain me for a second here. Let's look at Brothers War artifacts, the cheapest one that we can find, cheapest serialized card from Brothers War. So what I want to do is I want to multiply the cheapest Brothers War artifact by 63.
It's looking like Spike. It's looking like around 77. I would say 80 is a good mark.
$80.
Yeah.
Okay, so 63 times 80, and we're going to see how this pans out. Edgar Markov, $5,000.
Okay, so around $5,000.
That's my thought, because it's going to be just that freaking rare, and it's not outside the realm of possibility, because we have stuff like the One Ring serialized from Lord of the Rings Special Edition,
right?
Which is freaking $10,000 or more. We've seen some listed as high as $100,000, which is
pushing the price. That's just trying to mess with the market.
We pulled a house. But that's kind of like where my thought goes, like right out the gate, is like, when you look at all those Karlov Manor ones, it's like, okay, those are like around $1,000. This is the only serialized card. I think this is the first time they've ever done only one serialized card, right? That being the headliner. So it's even different than the Modern Horizons 3, where it's like you're looking at $2,000 for one of those, for like the Ulamog, for example. I think Edgar could push 5K.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. With the Eldrazi, you were at a 250, but there are 750 of those total. And so with only 500 versions of the premier Vampire Commander, it'll fall out. Let us know down in the comments how much you think this card is going to go for, either out of the gate or once the price settles down. Jake, the other big part of this set that's got everybody talking, and honestly, the card I like even more, are these movie poster variants. Now, these are going to be like a 10 to 20% chance pull from collector boosters only. So this is sort of the other big hit, if you want to call it that, even though these aren't going to pull near the amount of value that you're going to see in a serialized card, obviously. You've got like a 8% chance somewhere in there across 2 different slots in a collector booster to pull a non-foil. So like 16 there. And then you've got a lower chance, maybe around 10 somewhere in there, depending on how those slots actually fall out, to pull a foil one from that very last slot. And that's the only place you can get foil versions of these movie poster cards, is in a 10% chance in the very last slot of a collector booster. So with these, you know, they're going to be rarer, but these aren't going to be, in my opinion, $100 cards. Maybe out of the gate, maybe for the most desirable foil one, but they're cool nonetheless.
Yeah, they're very cool. It's like they've been testing that gosh darn secret layer on us, haven't they?
Yeah, they really have.
They've really been gearing us up. No, I'm all in on these. I think that these are great. When I say all in, that doesn't mean I'm going to go buy all of them, but I am spiritually, I'm all in on it. I think that they're very cool looking. I think they're pretty sweet. And I think people are gonna love them. You know, Meat Hook Massacre, dude. This is dope, man. Yeah, this is great.
This is one that I really love. I think that a lot of people are gonna be after this one. In
the green
particular.
and red, dude.
Yes,
so good. The greenish yellow and red.
Such a good reprint here. It's only, you know, been in our Midnight Hunt different treatments here across all of our special, you know, double feature or whatever. But it's an expensive card, and so having it in this set as a straight up reprint and a retro and the desirable movie poster version, very cool. And I think that Emrakul is going to be the same way. People are really going to want this version of Eldrazi Mami to play in their decks. At least I do. I think this is very cool. So Jake, we were shown Thraben Inspector, Young Wolf, and Mausoleum Wanderer in this borderless version. Not a ton of notable here, other than this is something that I love. I've really enjoyed opening play packs and finding borderless commons and uncommons. It feels a little more special. I'm sure that'll run out when, you know, they see how well the Zendikar borderless lands did and put that into every freaking set going forward. But right now it's still fairly new. And so I really love having commons and uncommons in these borderless treatments, just to have a little something special to pull while you're opening.
At my LGS here in LA, the owner, he has a full art deck.
Nice.
So it's like everything has to be borderless or full art, or however you want to say it. And I think this is smart by Wizards of the Coast to do this. And you're right, it does feel good to be looking at a play pack and now all of a sudden, oh cool, a full art Abrade. Or wow, this is a really dope Rex Sage. I love that it's full art. Does it make me worse at drafting? Probably so, because I'm like, ooh, I should pull that.
I want that.
That's nice, you know? But yeah, I think that these are all very cool.
We don't have to feel that way about Thraben Inspector or Young Wolf. Like, these are both dope cards that are going to be killer in this set if you're drafting.
Dude, also Thraben Inspector is a really good popper card as well.
Yeah.
It's great.
It was also Spell Queller that we've gotten as well so far in the borderless versions, but really a big fan of those. We are also getting the retro cards. I think that's worth noting here. We saw the Meat Hook Massacre. We got the Avacyn that people didn't want, but it's still a cool Avacyn. People wanted the other Avacyn. This is the one we're getting. Retro frames at this point have sort of lost their luster, lost their newness, but are still very cool. And they're doing something a little different with this, Jake, where they've got 5 mythics that are only going to appear in retro. So we're going to get Snapcaster, and we're also going to get Liliana of the Veil. Let me show you some other one here. Retro Liliana of the Veil is going to be one of the cards that are in this 5 set of mythics in retro that you can only find in retro. Cool. What do you think of Steve Argyle's art there on the retro frame?
I mean, I think it's great.
Yeah, it looks awesome.
I think this is awesome, and it's a really good, for anybody who doesn't know, this is a wonderful throwback to Innistrad. Innistrad brought Snapcaster Mage, which for anybody new, you might not know how powerful Snapcaster Mage was, but this was a card that was just an absolute house for so long in Standard. It was a modern staple as well. It's kind of been powered out at this point, but it's a very fair card and very cool. That set also brought us the enemy check lands for the first time, which are Sulphur Falls, that whole cycle. And it brought us Liliana the Veil, Geist of St. Traft. Deadeye Navigator came out of that block, not that set. But Innistrad was a very beloved set, Joel. That's when you and I really got back into Magic. It was shortly after, Alara Block and Zendikar, and Innistrad was not far behind those two. And this set really takes me back. I just love it.
Yeah, I wanted to show some of these other retro cards here that we've already seen. Deadeye Navigator in the retro is notable. Archangel we've already seen. Cards like Meat Hook Massacre, Blood Artist version of that now in the retro.
Triskaidekaphobia.
Yep.
Yeah, dude.
You've got some really cool. I love the Eldrazi colorless frame. I think that this is really cool looking to differentiate it from retro artifacts, and so very excited about that as well, even though retro frames have sort of lost their luster.
They're calling it an Innistrad Remastered, but we are seeing cards from Innistrad, Dark Ascension, and Avacyn Restored. So for anybody who doesn't know, that we used to be on a block format. We used to be on a block schedule, where you'd get 3 sets that were all tied together lore wise, and so don't expect to see a Dark Ascension Remastered or an Avacyn Restored Remastered.
No, that's all inclusive here. It's like Ravnica Remastered was every time that we went to Ravnica. This set actually includes Midnight Hunt and Crimson Vow as well. So it is like literally everything that's happened on Innistrad, they could have pulled a card from, and they probably did.
Now, here's my question. Do they give us Cavern? Cavern of Souls originally debuted at Rare in Avacyn Restored. Do we end up getting a retro Cavern? That would be really cool as well.
It would be sick. It feels like since they just pulled that trigger for LCI, is that right? We won't see it again within 2 years, but I feel like that's also one that they maybe would have publicized out of the gate to drive hype. But it's also a good start to preview season. Get the hype train popping up again.
Get Edgar Markov and then be like, oh, but also Cavern of Souls.
Yeah, right.
It'd be pretty wild.
For people who wanted to fill out more of the Showcase Fang and the Showcase Equinox treatments, these were from those Midnight Hunt, Crimson Vow sets that not a ton of people were huge fans of, but they're also bringing back those to get some reprints of some older cards, Hunt Master and Blood Artist, into those treatments as well. So overall, it looks like another cool remastered set that is going to bring us some cool stuff to open up, but it's just probably not going to get as much attention as the rest of the sets of the year because reprint sets aren't really for everybody.
Joel, you said earlier, you made a joke about this, but how do we pull Edgar Markov? How do we get the serialized one?
I think you don't. I think that, collector boosters get lucky. But with a card this rare, only 500 existing, it's like there's no way to aim at that other than to go significantly overboard in purchasing collector boxes of this. And I don't think anybody watching this video is the person that's buying multiple cases to chase Edgar Markov serialized. You just have to kind of do the math of where that delta hits of I'm going to spend this much so that I've got that much on top left where I could just go buy the single. But honestly, just go see if you can find a good price for it from somebody else who pulls it.
That's right. Maybe we'll see Wubby do a chase. He likes to do those over the top kind of openings. Are you excited about this set? How are you feeling about it?
It's another remastered set. I'm certainly not more excited about this one than I have been about any of the other remastered sets. Dominaria was much closer to me as far as personal love for a thing. Ravnica was fine. And then Innistrad, you were talking about it. I actually quit again right before Innistrad came out. I never have played, with the exception of Crimson Vow and the other one. I've never played while a Innistrad set was in Standard. And so it's not really, even the revisit, when we went back for the sort of Eldritch Horror version
Sure.
I wasn't even playing then. And so Innistrad is just not a plane that I really have a lot of like heart connection to, other than I like some of the cards. I've played a lot of the cards from it that are good for Commander, you know?
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, this set for me, I kind of feel the same way. It's a remastered set. We're getting a bunch of reprints. It's a bunch of stuff that I don't need. But it looks cool. There's some cool looking stuff. That's definitely something that we could say these days is, Wizards is smart. They're like, how do we get people who already have these cards to buy them again? Oh, we will give them new art.
Special treatments.
We will give them special treatments, and maybe that will be enough. So yeah, from that perspective, it's something where if I get a box of it from Wizards of the Coast, sure, I'll open it.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's kind of how it's going to fall for us. Let us know if you're collecting this set. And if you like collecting Magic, you should check out this video next, where I collected all of Duskmourn, every card from the main set of Duskmourn, without Jake knowing. I did it behind his back at a convention. Go check that out.
What a jerk, right?
We'll see you in the next video.